Your headache isn't caused by a lack of ibuprofen.
Yes.
And your lack of functioning hard penis is not caused by a lack of Viagra.
Hey, you. Thanks for tuning in. Just a quick heads up, this episode is rated R, so expect that there will be some language that you may not want your kids to hear, lots of adult topics, and quite possibly some explicit conversations about sex. This episode is probably not safe for work, though, I guess it depends on where you work. Hey there, Bradley.
Hello, Rebecca.
I am really glad that you're able to come and make it on the show finally.
It has been a long time waiting, and I'm very happy to start.
It has. You were on the show about a year ago when I had my birthday party, and everyone came and recorded a short little piece. So you're on the episode. I don't remember exactly which one it's called, but one of those episodes. And I know we had talked a lot about very sexy things. I mean, for me, you're one of the people who has a very high level of both experience with touch and sexuality and changing your mind about the way sex has been held in your consciousness and in your body. I know you grew up in a very strict religion where pretty much anything sexual was taboo or hidden or not allowed. It definitely wasn't talked about.
Joked about, because it was so uncomfortable, we couldn't really indulge in it, so we joked about it. Or a romantic movie would be on, and then someone would have to crack a joke because it was so uncomfortable, just the thought of sex. Even though we all knew we wanted to do it, it's still so taboo.
Oh, yeah. It's like middle school, but for your whole life. And you've changed your mind about a lot of that, and I've known you for a little over a year, something like that.
Going on 2.
Yeah, going on 2. And you've been poly and pretty sex positive for a few years now. Do you want to?
Yes, let's see, 3 years ago, went from being in a monogamous 20-year relationship to separating and then going into dating for the first time ever. It's pretty typical, though, if you're at one end of a spectrum, then to change your mind or have that moment of clarity where you realize your truth today or yesterday is no longer your truth today. And then the natural physics of it all and the laws that just govern our existence will naturally throw you to the other side of the spectrum, just like a pendulum and a metronome on the piano, right? So there was no middle ground at that point. It was just extremes.
Yeah. I'm not surprised that you brought up the pendulum thing, because that's how I've often seen it. The farther someone holds back their honest expression of their sexuality, the more they swing in the opposite direction when it finally is okay. If it ever is okay.
Right.
Or they hide it and they swing in the other direction. So end up with all kinds of Catholic priests doing things that they shouldn't do.
And it's not so much of a shouldn't do, in my opinion. It's a natural consequence of cornering a human that could otherwise have self-expression and not go into weird, as we would call it, behavioral patterns, which stem from cornering an animal, and they get scared. What are they going to do? They're going to react.
Of course.
We're no different.
I remember when we first met, we really connected on some of the body nerdiness about how bodies work and how they don't. And I, with my experience as a sex worker for 10 years, have all of this experience and knowledge. And you, as a chiropractor for many, many years, and a lot of being able to touch people and know people's bodies like that, also had a lot of information. And when we sat down and talked, we just had all kinds of things to share with each other. And I wanted to make sure that we were able to capture some of that and share that with other people, because I don't know, I don't think many people get to overhear conversations like the way we have them.
Right. It's quite liberating, wouldn't you say?
I'd
say. A quote from the Count of Monte Cristo. When he finally has that confrontation with Mercedes about his affairs, because he's in France and he is a count. And he's like, it's quite liberating, wouldn't you think? Wouldn't you say? And so it is so liberating to be able to have an honest conversation about what this animal inside of us is feeling without the shame of a preconceived Puritan idea. My experience, that's how I describe it. And be able to express whatever that is within the confines of not hurting anybody else or yourself concept, BDSM being some exceptions.
Right. You could have consensual pain.
Exactly. But just generally speaking, having that autonomy to express yourself, I think, again, keeps, I don't think priests that abuse children are born that way. I think we breed them that way. And now you may have generations of issues, but I don't think that is something that can't be changed, because I realized that yesterday's truth is no longer today's truth, and I let it go. Not that easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really refreshing to watch you too, because I readjusted my beliefs from, the ones that I grew up with quite a bit, but also many, many years ago. So getting to be friends with you and occasional lovers with you and hear your very fresh new perspectives about, hey, this is how I think the world is now, and this is why I'm living the way I'm living. It's been really exciting and really fun.
Definitely.
I don't remember exactly how this came up, but I do remember that we ended up having a conversation about circulation and orgasms. And there were so many fun things that came up. It was really neat to think about what I have known about orgasms and sexual pleasure and see them from the lens of the chiropractic world and energy. And I think maybe it was when we were talking about, I think we were talking about hard-ons and Viagra.
Yes.
And you had some really interesting things to say about
Mm-hmm. Okay, so with circulation problems in men, it's still a symptom. So we got to start at the beginning. I go back just a little bit. So a lot of people go right to the symptom, they treat it. In the chiropractic world, if someone's got a hip out of place and the pain's and it's out of place on the right, then the problem could be there, but it could also be down the leg. It could be on the left side. And so going to the symptom would miss the point. Trying to fix a lack of erection problem, erectile dysfunction as they want to label it, which then that self-fulfilling prophecy happens to. That's psychology of it, which we'll get to some other podcast. But for the physical circulation problem, has nothing to do with the penis. The penis is fine. It needs better blood flow. It doesn't need a cock ring. Not that those aren't great.
They can be fun.
Yes. But to be able to maintain a hard-on is all about full body circulation. So misaligned bones block blood flow, right? It's a double-edged sword. The spine protects the nervous system and keeps you from becoming a Christopher Reeve situation, right? In that vulnerability. But it also is a hindrance. It can totally fuck you over as soon as it misaligned itself just a few millimeters. And so depending on what you're hitting, what you're causing to swell, it could be that lumbar forenerve that goes all the way to the penis. Now there's lots of overlap. So imagine if you have a block and a roadblock at the spinal level, but you're still trying to treat the penis and the body's like, I'm good, get off the Viagra. Your headache isn't caused by a lack of ibuprofen.
Yes.
And your lack of functioning hard penis is not caused by a lack of Viagra.
Okay, so since you brought up Viagra, I have a question for you. I have noticed that when I am with a client or with a partner that is using Viagra, they often have a really intense headache after they orgasm. And I'm assuming it's something to do with blood pressure, but it's kind of like so obvious at this point that if they have that really intense headache, I know that they've taken it, whether they tell me or not.
Got it. Sure. Okay, so the physiology behind that, my understanding of it, because on the fly, because this is more medical advice, I'm not your doctor. So come see me if you need that. You increase blood flow with Viagra, the purple pill, whatever, Cialis, all those things. But when you do that, you change the chemistry of the body, you trick it to increase blood flow. That's what those pills do. It takes your body's natural capacity to figure out its issue by sending out a pain signal saying, hey, we got a problem in my back. Fix the back and you might fix your erection, right? But the body then has this increased blood flow throughout the whole thing. And that's probably excessive amount of pressure in the head. And they're feeling this pressure, which turns into a headache symptom.
That makes sense.
So that's my thought on it, but I'd have to look it up more just to make sure. But anytime, you're going for a jog, you're red, you're sweating because your body has to maintain that perfect temperature so that your organs are homogeneously submerged in the same temperature and blood all the time. And so it'll sweat or your fingers get cold because all that circulation. You can live without your fingers, but you need your heart. You want your penis.
And your womb.
Right, and all those other organs. And so your body's like, well, sorry fingers, we need this in the heart right now because it is 2 degrees under zero and we're going to die if we don't get some cover. So the body goes into protective mode. So your circulation, there's no way you're going to have an erection in a survival mode. And all too often, because of our lifestyle choices, we're in survival mode.
Okay, so yeah, that makes a lot of sense based on what I've been seeing and what I know. So you mentioned alignment in the spine and other places potentially. What are some other things to think about when you're looking at circulation and wanting to increase that for whatever reason?
That's a great question. So we're in a world of convenience. We need to be honest with ourselves. We're not going to go become a super athlete tomorrow overnight. Fuck that idea. Nobody's going to do it unless you're on drugs and you're crazy. Okay? I've been on...
Or you're not taking any other drugs and you have nothing else to do.
I know, right? Basic stuff. So in a cold situation, like we talked about, that's survival mode. If you're out in a blizzard or it's 2 below zero, it's not deadly in that moment, but you stay there long enough, you're not going to live. Right? And so the body goes into survival mode. So how do we do that safely? Right? How do we challenge the body? Don't piss it off because now you got an injury. But if we can just simply challenge it. So I do cold plunges. You want to know more about that? Follow Wim Hof. He's the crazy guy. He's the caveman, the Iceman. He's got 28 world records, total badass, and completely changed my thinking. So if you want to keep your food from spoiling, do you throw it in the microwave or leave it in the sunshine or do you throw it in the freezer?
So you're talking about the human body as something that you don't want to have spoiled. So you make it cold.
Exactly. It'll last longer. You'll preserve it. Hot baths and hot tubs all the time. Not a good idea. Once in a while, sure.
And I love my hot baths, Bradley.
I know, but balancing that out with maybe a cold shower afterwards to increase that range of tolerance, right? If you're conditioned to experience 60-degree water and 90-degree water, I don't know if that's too hot, come to think of it, but just that range of exposure will make you a superhuman. Just like Wim Hof. The guy can sit in salty ice water at the Arctic Sea for 2 hours.
Wow.
Submerged up to his neck.
Okay, so what is the point of making your body cold and how does that increase your circulation?
So the way that works is your body goes into that survival mode and it thinks, oh no, if we don't get blood to the extremities or somewhere or the penis fast, it's going to freeze off and we're done. So the body will then regrow and reroute new blood vessels called angioneogenesis. Angio, blood flow or blood. Neo, new, or the matrix. Genesis, creation of, right? So in a survival mode, it'll go around the roadblock, increase blood flow. Well, if you walk up into or down into cold water, like if you get access to a lake or the Puget Sound or anything like that, you can submerge yourself up to your waist and it's not completely submerging your core, which is really intense and takes training. So you don't hyperventilate and stuff. But if you can start getting kind of wading in the cold water for 5 minutes or as much as you can tolerate over your waist and soak the groin, soak all those good things, it will compel the body to send more blood vessels there. So you'll naturally, without having to change your diet, your lifestyle, other than standing in cold water for a few minutes, you'll get a better hard-on because you'll have better blood flow.
Kind of makes me wish I had a penis. It'll give me a better blood flow for my clit.
To your clitoris, absolutely. Potato.
Okay. I might have to try that. I've been watching you do your cold plunges out in the bay so often for the year, and I haven't yet done it with you, but now I'm getting more and more tempted.
It is uncomfortably comfortable, right? Because afterwards you feel like Superman, and you start to look like Superman. You become ripped as fuck. because your body's constantly like shivering and contracting those muscles, which is toning them, which helps control the stability of the spine, which keeps the spine from moving out of place, blocking nerves and blood flow. So definitely, if you've ever had a low back injury, go get adjusted, and make sure that they look the part. If they don't, it doesn't mean they're not a good adjuster. They're just not there mentally to help raise you up to a higher level of living and conceptualize the lifestyle shifts and the activities like cold plunging. My radar wasn't there before I started changing my lifestyle.
So you say, look the part. You mean when you go to see a practitioner, make sure that their body looks like they're in reasonable health and that they know what they're doing.
Exactly. They don't have to. Genetic lottery. I got lucky. I look like a really strong person.
Yes. Hello, Adonis.
Fortunate, right? And that form and framework was there underneath 60 pounds of fat and back pain. And before, when I was in that religion, you're part of the sheeple. You're part of the herd. So you don't really stand out and excel because that's selfish. And so I didn't take care of my body. It was pointless. That's not why I'm here on this earth. I'm here to save the world, right? But when I got out of that, I still couldn't pick up my kids and I couldn't play with them and I couldn't travel to church even for 20 minutes without my back going out from old injuries that I never fixed. So blood flow sucked to my penis too, but I was like 25 years old and having erectile dysfunction.
Wow.
And I kind of understood why, but I didn't appreciate it.
It's interesting because knowing you now, I'm like, I can't imagine that ever being a problem for you. So.
Yeah. Even like people that are 30, I'm like, it's because I'm old. I'm like, bullshit. I'm 40 and I feel like I'm 20 and my hard-ons are better than ever. And I don't take Viagra or anything. Other than vitamins and whole foods and water. Like those things are really important. And so we, pat yourself on the back for getting out of bed during this really intense time. And then pat yourself on the back again for drinking more water, and doing something to increase blood flow. Because if you're dehydrated, forget it. And expecting her to be all warm and fuzzy for you and moist.
Especially if she's dehydrated.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because dehydration has been one of my first go-to tips when clients will come in and say, okay, this is a problem I'm having. I'm like, well, first of all, are you drinking enough water? Because if you're not, there's no way there's enough volume of blood and liquid in your body to hold up your cock.
Right.
So drink water.
It doesn't keep you alive. It keeps the human race alive in a certain way, but it doesn't. Your heart gets the water first. Your brain gets the water first. Your stomach gets the water first. Kidney stones happen because kidneys are not first on the list. Erections, forget it. It's like number 10 if you're lucky.
Wow.
I haven't even added up all the body parts that come before the penis or the clit. So expecting excellent sex when you're dehydrated and like, I don't like water. I'm like, well, then add some flavor to it. Just stop drinking the coffee, the alcohol, and the beer and stuff that dehydrates you.
Yeah.
And then you'll have better sex. Because if you take Viagra on a dehydrated body, you will fuck up your body and all its organs. Can't emphasize that enough.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything has side effects, but yeah, when it's a very high price, you got to be careful of what you're doing.
And our bodies are like sports cars. So treat them like that.
Here. Okay, so when we decided this would be a fun episode to do, I asked some of my listeners for questions. And I have a couple here, 7 or 8, I think. So I'm going to read them one at a time and feel free to answer as much or as little as you can. And then we'll see what other fun stories we can tell at the end for a little bit of sexy bedtime.
Nice. Sounds great. Let's do it.
Okay, so here's one question. How might high blood pressure and drugs such as Losartan affect sexual performance?
That is a great question. Okay, right off the bat, I am not familiar with Losartan and what it's intended to do, its intended use. But I can tell you, like we just talked about, if we don't have enough water in our body, yet we're still swallowing these pills that the liver has to filtrate and filter through, when you're rinsing your grapes off or your rice or anything like that, you need water. You can't just shake it out and hope all the bugs and the dirt fall off. You have to have water. So high blood pressure and blood pressure pills on dehydration, your body's not going to give any of that extra blood flow to your penis, your clitoris, because it has to have it to filter that pill you're taking. Otherwise, the heart's like, I am going to die because I have no water. So that's where heart attacks come in. So, and we're mostly made up of water, 70 to 90%. There's a debate and always will be. But if we came from water, if we evolved, if we followed that concept, then if we are going without water, you will shrivel up like a grape turned into a raisin.
And what about if they're not dehydrated, but they are just having some of these drug interactions?
To overgeneralize it, admittedly, the general response to medication, the body has to interpret those new compounds and assimilate them into the body in a productive, functional way with as minimal side effects as possible, because the body doesn't want to get sick. It's totally happy being healthy, but we don't know how to make it healthy because we're not being taught that on commercials. We're taught about what might happen if you take this. But to be taught how to, so the overgeneralization would be the prescriptions will affect the body in a way that is unnatural to it. And so sexual performance just takes a back seat. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when other functions of the body are malfunctioning, those are the priority for the body. And it has to process what that chemical is that it's taking as well. Wondering, do I need this? Oh, I do need this. But how come my pancreas isn't producing this anymore, like the insulin? That kind of idea.
Yeah.
So when it's Russian roulette with chemicals, and so you don't know, there's no surefire explanation for why you can't keep a hard-on if you're taking a certain medication other than the complication that you induce by introducing a foreign substance into the body when the body already makes millions of compounds. It is the best chemist you've ever imagined.
So basically, it sounds like what we're both saying here is the healthier you are, the better sex you have. And the more you are stressed out and in what we're calling survival mode, then the less likely your body is going to be able to have potent, powerful, enjoyable sex.
Correct. An absolute direct correlation. Yeah, there's few absolutes in this world. But when your body is sick and is putting out a fire, it doesn't have time to give you a good hard-on. As horny as you are and as built up as that sexual tension is, unless your body is chillax and it's not putting fires out all day long with type 2 diabetes type thing, or high blood pressure, cholesterol's high. We knew these things thousands of years ago about how the health of the spine and what we eat matters drastically.
Yeah, that makes sense for me too. That is the thing that I can tell is always true, that the fitter somebody is, the more they're going to enjoy sex.
Very much so. I enjoy it now at age 40 more than I did when I was 20. Granted, I was a Mormon missionary and I was helping pop out babies and sleep deprived and going to school. Sex was like number 10 on the list again.
Talk about survival mode.
Yeah, survival mode. When you don't get to live your authentic self, it's so difficult to prioritize pleasure because you still have to have your hierarchical needs met first. Sex is one of them. It is a very important part of life, but it's not breathing and it's not digesting food that keeps your cells alive.
Yeah, very good point. Okay, are there any positions to increase blood flow and last longer for someone who has performance issues?
Positions in sex or positions in like stretching type thing?
I think the question meant positions in sex.
Okay. Try not to kink the hose. So the pleasureful bending the penis down when it's hard, down toward the floor is so enjoyable. However, it will kink the hose. And so missionary style is great because you're not being squished by your partner. And sometimes if you're too squished right below the groin on the inner thigh, there's some major blood flow arteries and veins that are going through there. So your legs will start to go numb. Your penis starts to get soft. And it's got nothing to do with anything other than the fact that you're literally stepping on the hose. So avoid pressure to the male groin and hip area. So missionary position is great because the penis is intended to come up and out. not kinked down in a weird, fun cowboy riding, cowgirl style, right?
Yeah, that's good to think about because I've never thought about the stepping on the hose or putting a kink in the hose. But I have noticed that every now and then there are some people, I think it's just part of their anatomy, the way that they're built. But some positions, some girl on top positions,
True.
they can't stay hard for very long. And now I'm putting in my head, why? Because we switch to a different position, it's fine.
Anatomy shapes and how unique everyone's anatomy is. Absolutely. So some missionary positions, what if your penis does grow downward? Mine grows upward when it gets hard. Some people get hard and they have a reverse curve on their penis and it curves kind of down toward the ground like a stream of pee. And so depending on anatomy contours and shapes and directions, so just don't kink the hose. And so get into a position that doesn't do that, scissoring each other. That's great because everyone's open wide. Great blood flow. There's no bending of the legs, which decreases blood flow. So try not to kink the hoses and the junctions of the knees and things like that.
Nice. Yeah, I've known for a long time that it's really challenging for me to have an orgasm when my legs are bent.
Okay.
So,
So the missionary position where everybody's straight.
Yep.
Physically, not sexually.
Nice.
Then that's a great position to ensure great blood flow. And all the time we're sitting in chairs at a computer and our knees are bent that's a kink. That's like in my town, the skinny areas during when all the traffic lets out and it's all the bottleneck, right?
Yeah.
So when you bend the joint, you bend the cock, you kink the hose.
Nice. Okay.
Laws of physics can't lie.
I didn't really expect to be getting that much extra information for me and my sex life out of this conversation, but holy cow, Bradley.
Wow.
I am learning stuff.
This is how I talk to my patients because the more you understand how your body functions, then sex truly becomes pleasurable because you don't have to wonder, am I going to get it up this time?
Yeah.
All you have to wonder about is like, what position does she like? Or he, or they.
A little bit of knowledge goes a long way.
Yes, it does. And it's all the same damn parallel. When you figure out one system of the body, the rest of them parallel. The universe is very simple. The body's very simple. It's complex beyond complexity, but it's so simple. It's like, here's a pattern. It works. Let's reuse it. And it's redundant. Snot, boogers, loogies, all that gross stuff. You ever notice that texture is similar to sperm?
For a good reason.
Right? So it attaches to the inner lining. It's different podcasts. We have so many podcasts about human body function and sexuality. It's awesome.
Oh my God, yes. Okay, you ready for another question?
Yes.
So this is the question as it was written, and we can decide what we're going to do about it. It sounds like sudden loss of erection might be covered on this episode. How about delayed ejaculation? Can it be related or completely different? It's a pretty wide question.
Right. Okay. Give me your interpretation first, and that'll help me from being a squirrel here and giving you 1,000 things all at once.
Okay. So my interpretation, the way I'm reading this, sudden loss of erection, guessing, gosh, I don't know. I guess there are a lot of different reasons why that can happen. Sometimes mental.
A lot of times it's mental.
Sometimes it's the kinking of the
lock the
hose.
front door?
Yeah.
Did I pay the bill today? Oh shit. Right. So preoccupation and not in the moment is going to give you the fastest loss of erection because it's mental. Think about it. So you can have orgasms emotionally and mentally without the physical touch. I have not been able to master that yet. Still practicing that. Masturbator, but it takes mastering. And so this is all part of the plan. So stay present. Definitely. Like no one else can make you do that. You have to do that. And if you're not, and you're off in La La Land or worried about the kids, the bills, the house, whatever, you're not going to keep an erection, no matter how hot she is and how much you guys connect. I say from he to she, but I am pansexual and open about it. I love everyone. And so when I refer to she or he, it's just the generalities.
Yep. Whichever gender your partner happens to be or
Love
pronoun they wish to use.
Love it all.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I've noticed often it can be an emotional disconnection.
Yeah.
Where the person that you're with, whether you notice that they're not connected to you or you're just not connected to them, if there's not that back and forth, that co-creativeness in the emotional aspect, or if there's something in your relationship that's creating some real problems, logistical problems, or one of you's not able to have
disconnect.
Yeah. If one of you's not able to have your heart open anymore, if you've been hurt and it now doesn't feel fun to connect with somebody.
Right.
Those are all very real, very common in my experience.
Thank you for bringing that up. The mental is huge, huge contribution. It's public knowledge at this point, but I'm also in the middle of a divorce after 20 years of marriage, and we've known each other since we were 15, but it was one of those almost arranged marriages through the church, right? You can't touch each other until you say yes across the altar in the holy temples. Different podcast.
Definitely.
What is delayed ejaculation like? They've been edging for too long?
Possibly. I think that's a common way that presents, but it can also be you just can't come. You can't come, you can't come, you can't come.
Could be more mental related. Again, if you're off in La La Land, I've done that and I have amazing connection with some of my lovers, right? In those moments. I mean, you can always, but if you're not there, then that delayed ejaculation could happen simply because you're not focused on your for me, my penis going in and out of whatever it is I'm touching, right? And I'm off in La La Land, and so I'm not focused on the sensation that's on my penis. Remember, your face, lips, and groin, your reproductive organs, the external genitalia, have the most concentrated nerve endings for sensory pleasure. This is evolutionary, not shameful. So, in those situations, there's no problem with the anatomy, but is there enough blood flow to it? Is there enough nerve conduction to it? Did you cut a wire? Is there a little cut in the wire? You know what I mean? Is there irritation preventing that? Those are some reasons for not being able to maintain erections or even get to the point of coming.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know I've had experience myself in the past with using masturbation to go to sleep, which was very, very effective. And because I was doing it every night for, a month or something like that, I was shifting to a very early morning shift. So I had to actually be falling asleep by 9 p.m. And that was the only way I could get to sleep.
Yeah.
But what I found is I started disconnecting from the process. And so it was more about the friction of my fingers or whatever I happened to be using than it was about the eroticism and the connection of it. When I got to that point, I started finding it was much harder to get an orgasm. And a lot of the, bringing myself back into the experience, putting my presence back on my clit, that was a big help. And also slowing down, because I think once we get in this habit of going a certain speed, and this is the speed we associate with orgasm, we create that friction process, and then the friction, okay, I don't know how accurate this is, but for me, this is very true. That the slower someone goes, especially when we're both aroused and horny and our bodies are appropriately engorged, the slower someone goes, the more I feel it and the quicker I get somewhere exciting. The faster they go, the less I feel it, which is not what people expect.
Yes.
And there's a couple of exceptions to that.
Always.
There's a few times, there's sometimes when I really do just hard and fast right on my G-spot with somebody's cock. But if I'm not present for that, then that also just becomes friction. And if they're not present for that, it becomes them being friction inside me. And that's not what I want.
Someone tapping your hand next to you, sitting on the bus type thing, and they just don't stop. That constant stimulation will drive you batshit crazy eventually. Your clit's get off of me, leave me alone, you're squishing me. So you're squishing the blood flow out of the clit. And so it can't stay erect. You keep pushing out the erection because it's a tender, perfectly evolved, oh my God, that's another podcast just on the clit.
I love the look on your face right there.
Right, double the nerve endings, double the pleasure. That's why they can have lots of orgasms, females, because of the increased sensitivity. But you have to be sensitive to your heart. Sensitive to your emotions, sensitive to your mental game. Remember on The Last Samurai, the guy's fighting in the field practicing, and the young guy comes up, he's like, too many mind the people, mind the sword, mind fighting, mind blah, 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 blah. It's like too many mind, no mind, right? Be in the moment. Feel what is frictioning right now till it turns into pleasure. So we've talked about pressure, like high blood pressure and this and that. Let's talk about pressure real quick, about pressure from guys to women.
Okay.
Right? We're different headspaces. Guys out there, if you can relax the pressure from lack of foreplay, that's pressure because you just want sex. You go straight for the clit. But kiss them, touch their butt, smile at them, wink at them, send them a text. Like, that's the foreplay.
Kiss them a lot.
Kiss them a lot.
I like a lot.
And then start touching them as they're like, why aren't you touching me yet? And they'll grab your hand, they'll put it where they want it. But because you didn't pressure them. Too much pressure physically, too much pressure emotionally, too much pressure is not going to help your erection. And it's not going to get you that. And also, if you're just, we learned this the hard way. And those that have learned it already, they know what I'm talking about. If you think I'm full of shit, you haven't experienced it yet. Or you're still in that state of mind where it's like, well, I'm not getting enough. Well, right away, Henry Ford said, whatever you say, you can or can't. So if you think about the physics that we've talked about and you apply less pressure in all areas and you listen to your body and you prep it with hydration and a few kisses before you try to fuck her or him, then your erection will naturally increase and get better without any support from external compounds that are artificial. And our body's like, what the fuck is this? And if you piss it off long enough, forget having a natural erection ever again. You'll become dependent on an artificial stimulant like coffee to wake your ass up in the morning, which I think is bullshit. Sorry for all those that love coffee. I didn't drink it growing up. I like it now, but I enjoy it when I want to. So the same thing. I want to go have sex. Great. But there's no scarcity. That's another thing. So the mental game is huge when it comes to having a great erection. And then go stand in some cold water and do it routinely. Compel your body to work harder. Otherwise, you're going to chase your tail.
That's really great points. I'm really glad you brought those up. One of the things that I was thinking while you were saying this is that I think you and I have a lot more access to healthy, open, clear sex than most people do. And maybe not most people that listen to the show, but it's
general public.
Yeah.
Humans, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes there is that belief in scarcity that nobody wants to have sex with me, nobody wants to see me, and my partner is not interested and they haven't been in years, or whatever the case is. So having to address that scarcity seems very important. Okay, so Dr. Bradley, I just heard you say that if you piss your body off often enough and long enough that you can forget about having an unstimulated orgasm or an
Right. Medicine, right?
Unmedicated orgasm.
Typically speaking, your body creates that resilience, right? Your 0.05 milligrams of Cialis or Viagra works today because you just need a little pick-me-up. But what happens 10 years down the road? How much of a pick-me-up, literally, pun intended, do you really need at that point? 2 pills, 3 pills? Your body's like, forget it. And so then its natural, evolved ability to give you the best hard-on when you're 70 years old because your body's strong and healthy. Remember, I was on the other side of that spectrum for most of my life. Back pain, sciatica down the right side, 20 years. Like I said, couldn't pick up my kids, couldn't even get to the church in 15, 20-minute drive without my body freaking out. So I've been there, and the erection sucked. And then you're not your authentic self, so that's a different podcast. But the point being is that there's the dependence, wearing a back brace at work all day, to only work for when you're lifting the heavy stuff. Because if you make your muscles lazy or dependent on that back brace, the muscles become lazy. If your penis becomes dependent on a pill, it will become lazy, organically speaking. And so expecting normal blood flow to get you up anymore when it relies on that, just like in alcohol, right? It's the same concept. You need dependence on an external thing, metaphorically speaking, spiritually, physically. It's all the same parallel. So you have to want it enough and get to a point of running out of fucks to give to where you decide, I want to fuck, right? and I'm going to do what it takes. And so I was born into this cultish experience and headspace. I was born into an absolute way of living and thinking. And I, being that Libra, and just feeling like there's a balance there and I'm missing something. Finally getting exposure to that, I normalized sexuality. It went from sexual shame to sexual abundance. A fucking hard road I've ever had to take. And it still gets me emotional. But worth every ounce of sweat, blood, years, you name it. It sucked. But I can tell you for the next 40 years, shit, my body's amazing now. It was dying and decomposing and getting arthritis and this and that. And I've got x-rays to show it. I have less arthritis, a straighter spine, better muscle balance than ever before. And my penis goes up I kiss my partner and in 30 seconds, he's like, let's go. I'm like, you got it. It's amazing. But back in the day, my body's like, I'm sorry, the blood work and flow is going to your low back to fix this because you won't get me, move and fix me and strengthen me. So yeah, I too took a backseat to sex, mentally and physically.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're saying that the becoming dependent and allowing your body to become dependent upon things like that is essentially what I was doing. I was becoming dependent upon the friction when I was masturbating myself to sleep and not really tapping into the eroticism and the arousal of it instead.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's just like life and maturity. The parallels again, right? Children don't understand what we do. So expecting my kids to not react when they get pissed off or something bad happens to them, they think it's bad. I'm like, that doesn't exist. It's a consequence of a reaction. It's physics. So you hit your brother, you're now grounded. They don't understand that. And neither do some parents. And so the same concepts is like, whack, don't hit. So if the body is just trained a certain way, it will do as you command. Your body is the genie and you tell it what to do. Eat that hamburger, eat that salad, right? Your choice. Which one's going to fuel your life cells, living stuff? And that translates directly into an erection. Okay, there's a lot of junctions and pathways from the mouth to the penis. But the concept and philosophy of allowing the penis to do its job started with its foreplay of eating good food and drinking enough water.
Yes.
Your penis and your clit want foreplay too. They want food, they want water, breathing, all those things make a better erection.
Awesome. Well, I think we've already covered this one. Someone asked for recommendations and tips for increasing blood flow and sexual performance in men over 50. And they asked if there are any male sex aids or toys to help stimulate.
Okay. I introduce myself as Bradley to my patients. I'm not Dr. Bradley. I am a teacher. Doctor means teacher. So first thing I teach my patients is forget about the age. It's just a fucking number. Okay. The universe doesn't care what the age is. They're like, are you doing what is congruent with growth and evolution for your body and adaptation? And if you're not, then you can expect it to decompose and die off faster and just be achy every moment of the day. I've been there. Sucks. So age does not matter. I'm 40 and have better erections, like I said earlier, than I did when I was 20 because I was overweight, wasn't working out. I had youth on my side. What happens when your youth is gone? Now I'm 50. Again, labels don't help. Diagnoses and I have this diagnosis. I have arthritis. Yes, I have some arthritis in my back. Who fucking cares? It doesn't keep growing if you keep things moving. So in this situation, age doesn't matter. The aids for sex or toys that men can use, again, it doesn't matter the age because even 30-year-olds have issues with it. And I take health histories on every patient. It takes me about an hour to go through the whole first new visit. And we go over these things all the time. And erectile dysfunction is common. So let's get back to why it's there in the first place. The issue's on the right, on the hip, the pain's on the left. So don't go for the symptom. The erectile dysfunction is still a symptom. So the secret is to make sure that we are doing those little things. Drink more water and go stand in some cold water for a few minutes every day. Or sit in a cold bathtub. Like, don't make an excuse. Find a way to do something that will change the course of your results. Insanity is expecting different results by doing the same fucking thing day after day and getting frustrated. And then your mental game goes to shit and you start wondering, why is everything falling apart? Been there too. And it's a self-perpetuating machine. They do exist. It's called your brain, your mind. Take that out of the mind, thinking that a toy is going to make my erection better. Yes, but why can't you have an erection in the first place? Why do we not ask ourselves those questions? We're not taught to, because there's no money in solving that riddle. Because once you have a full-on erection all the time because you're hydrated and you did a few of these things to increase blood flow, even a little bit of yoga, like stretching the muscles, because if your muscle's kinking down around the groin, you have that tight muscle. I've had blue balls, right? We have that sore testicle from not ejaculating or just that buildup. Sometimes it started because after a workout, like doing squats, my leg muscles would be so tight that because I didn't do my foam rolling and stretching and yoga. And I was like, I ain't got time for that shit. Right. And I was like, I got to get on to work. I got kids. I got this. And so stretching will improve erections because you open up the junctions where at those transitions where your hips are, meet the groin, meet the hips. You open up those pathways naturally by stretching. So toys save you money. We're in an economic hardship time right now. Go stand in some cold water, drink more water. Did I answer all those questions?
I think you did. There are more questions, but I think we're out of time.
Okay.
So, Bradley, could you tell me a little bit about where people can find you if they wanted to come and see you and get an adjustment?
Absolutely. So I'm over in Kitsap County in a quiet space called Silverdale. So you can go to my website. It's franklinchiro.com, short for chiropractic, so CHIRO. A lot of people say Franklin Chiro. It's kind of cute. I also offer 1 to 2 times a month, depending on schedules. It's a Tuesday evening and a Saturday, a class called Connecting the Dots on Health. We've called it lots of things. Back to basics. That was my original class. It's been evolving over the years. So now we're at this hands-on where you guys participate. So Rebecca, you'd come to my class and we would first connect all the dots on pain cycle, why pain is our friend. And then we can talk about all these basic things like this. And we even touch on sexuality from time to time, depending on, I know, if there's kids in the class or not. We don't want to shock them. I have no problem sharing with them if they're ready for it.
Yes.
We have our next class coming up on June 21st, where we talk about this. It's an hour long. So we debunk myths about health and bullshit that we've been fed about our health so that we can actually start to thrive. And that's where we change our behavior, and it's no longer insanity, and your results will be different. How much better and more better and more different, as my kids say, is up to you. So, and then the middle of the class is a Q&A. Ask me any question. I ate a Big Mac yesterday and my big toe swelled up. Why? I will tell them the physiology, what connects the brain, the mouth, the foot, all that together, and probably tell them to stop eating so many Big Macs, right?
Especially if they're making their foot swell up.
Right. So ridiculous comments, questions, concerns about health, bring them. And if I can't figure it out, you get extra raffles in the class, extra prizes, and I'm going to go look it up and we'll figure it out. And then the last part is hands-on. I teach people how to foam roll. What is a foam roller? They look at this foam thing and like, what is that, a sex toy? I'm like, actually, no, it's never thought about. And we teach them some basic band work to strengthen and stretch their muscles, right? Because if we do that, they're going to have better blood flow and that will increase their sexual capacity.
Yeah.
So yeah, we touch on so many fun, practical stuff. And people, it only goes from 6:30 to 7:30. People stay till 8:30 sometimes like, I got to go to bed. I got the gym at 4 a.m. Love you guys. We'll talk more next time. So that's coming up, but you can get a hold of me there. You can send emails through my website and I can get a hold of you that way.
Fantastic. So I'll make sure that I put the links and the details for that event in the show notes for this episode.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And I hope a lot of people come and see you and help get their body and their alignment all fixed back up so they can have better sex.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Rebecca. I'm a Libra, according to the horoscopes. I don't subscribe to their guidelines, just like Parlay. They're more like guidelines and actual rules. Pirates. So, what was the topic?
Hey there, pleasure seeker. Well, that's it for today's conversation. Here at Pleasure Central Radio, we love using conscious communication, science geekery, and copious amounts of true pleasure to improve our partnerships, our money, and our love lives. And we hope you do too. If you loved what you heard here, we'd love a review. You can do this easily on podcast players like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it's an easy way to help more people discover the show without you having to actually bring it up with them. To hear other episodes of the podcast and get notified immediately when a new episode is released, follow me on your favorite podcast player. Find out more and get in touch at pleasurecentralradio.com. Your thought to ponder today is...
Yeah, survival mode, when you don't get to live your authentic self, it's so difficult to prioritize pleasure because you still have to have your hierarchical needs met first. Sex is one of them. It is a very important part of life, but it's not breathing and it's not digesting food that keeps your cells alive.
Thanks for listening to Pleasure Central Radio, hosted by Rebecca Beltran. The guest today was Dr. Bradley Franklin. If you're inspired to join Bradley for a free educational monthly event to learn more about how to keep your body in great alignment, thrive and enjoy life, he would love to meet you in person. The next event is July 19th at his chiropractic office in Silverdale, Washington. See the show notes for a link to his website or to contact him. Ciao.